Democratic Congresswoman Julie Johnson of Farmers Branch, thank you so much and welcome back to Eye on Politics.
Hey, Jack, great to see you again.
Nice to see you. So first I want to begin by getting your reaction to the deadly shooting at the ICE office in Dallas.
It's just terrible. This kind of violence, unfortunately, is clearly on the escalation. And it's the rhetoric that the president puts out on violence and getting the opponents and all the things that he's doing is just emboldening young men in particular to take violence into their own hands. I think it also begs the question, on another level, is why are so many young men so lost? The young man that shot Charlie Kirk, the young man that committed this, assassination attempt as well. What's going on there? And I think it's something that we as a society need to take a deeper look into why they're so socially ostracized and why they're looking to take political violence and shootings and assassinations. Why are they taking this path?
I want to ask you about that, but first I just want to get your response because this week we saw Republicans pinning this on Democrats saying the Democrats' statements and comments sharply criticizing ICE, calling ICE members, comparing them to Nazis, et cetera, is to blame. So what do you say to that?
I just think that's outrageous behavior on the part of these Republicans who are just, that's an example of them inciting and amping up the political animosity that we have in this country. And those kind of comments are unhelpful. They don't serve the public in a way to try to de-escalate the tensions that are going on out there. But the reality of it is the American people are very frustrated where a lot of the members of ICE are handling themselves, pushing down women in hallways, being exceedingly violent with people, having this power control, the way that they conduct themselves, and the public is responding to it. I obviously don't agree with this kind of violence at all, and I strongly condemn it. But I think those comments made by Republicans only inflame the situation and they don't de-escalate it at all.
And let me get back to your other comment as far as looking into, why these men, what's going on.
Mhm.
Um, I'm curious as to where you're going with that.
Well, I was just reading a little bit about the shooter, and there's also if you read about the shooter who assassinated Charlie Kirk, they're both young men in their early 20s, lost in this world, don't have stable employment, have issues, more loner isolationists. And what's going on with that? And, there's been a lot of articles about the isolation of young men in this country. And I do think that's something that we in elective office and that our society needs to take a stronger look and open up that conversation about of why young men are feeling lost and isolated in this way, such that they think that political assassination or gun violence is the way to solve a problem. With all the school shootings of all these school kids, most of those were done by young men as well. And so I just think that's something that we need to start talking about and seeing if we can't get to the bottom of.
I also want to talk to you about this potential government shutdown looming for next week, or this coming week. And how concerned are you that this is going to happen?
Oh, it's going to happen. I mean, the Republicans are out playing golf. We have the shutdown happens on Tuesday. We were scheduled to be in session Monday and Tuesday, and Speaker Johnson told the Republicans not to come back. They canceled all House activities. I'm going back to Washington. I'll be there. I will be in D.C. ready to cast a vote on a responsible budget that restores healthcare opportunities and benefits for the American people. But as it stands right now, it takes all four aspects. House Republicans and Democrats, House Republicans and this, I mean, Senate Republicans and Democrats. Three of the four are going to be in D.C., but the House Republicans will be clearly absent, not ready to do business.
So you voted against the continuing resolution, and Republicans call it a clean CR, just no policy additions, just straight continued funding through November 21st. Why did you vote against?
Well, it's not a clean CR. What does that mean? It means it extends the existing budget that I voted against the first time. And, the ACA tax credits are going to, the elimination of those October 1st, letters are going to go out where millions of Americans' healthcare costs are going to go up. And it's just an irresponsible budget. They're cutting food benefits, cutting Medicaid. But the ACA tax credits are a thing that Americans rely on. They rely on in healthcare. And in Texas, in particular, is a state that has really utilized those tax benefits that American people rely on and count on in order to acquire affordable health insurance. And what's going to happen? And then Trump today, I don't know if you saw, is assessing 100% tariffs on pharmaceuticals. So we already had out of control pharmacy prices, out of control things that make people's medicines unaffordable and unattainable. And this Republican administration is only doing things worse. It's not a quote clean CR. All it does is extend an already terrible budget that benefits only the very wealthiest among us and harms the millions of those of everybody else.
And let me ask you with regards to, because there has been a lot of conversation about extending these tax credits, and they were enhanced under COVID, if I'm not mistaken. And that's what we're talking about here, right? Is making those enhancements permanent. Is that right?
I think we're talking about making, well, the Republicans are trying to strip all the tax credits, right? And really, will cut 32 million people, I guess, out of affordable health care. Small business owners. You remember who was taking advantage of the these tax credits? These are small businesses. These are self-employed folks, people who don't have the luxury of working for a large corporation that can afford health care for the employees. These are hardworking folks that just want health care, that want to make sure their family stays healthy, and that can, cover the health conditions that are present. And the Republicans here are trying to strip these working folks away from their health care, and I'm not here for it.
And why can it be done? I mean, Republicans, I think it was Senator Thune, who's the Senate Majority Leader, said, let's pass the CR and then we'll deal with this. We will have a conversation about these Affordable Care Act incentives, tax credits after that.
Well,
And
that's what they said last time. I mean, they've had since March to pass a budget and to get this done. And here we are at the end of September. This deadline has been on the books for a very long time. And the Republicans, who are in complete control, have completely failed to lead and address this issue. And this is all talk. This is all hat, no cattle. This is a bunch of false promises. And at the end of the day, Democrats have to hold the line. Plus, waiting till the end of November is it doesn't it only hurts folks. The tax credits go into effect now. The premiums and the new policy period was January 1st. If you wait till the end of November, that does not allow enough time to get people's health coverage in place. The renewal letters are going out October 1st, which is just in a few days. The time is now to address this issue.
last question on this topic. Republicans are already pinning this on Senator Schumer. I think some Republicans are saying this is a Schumer shutdown if it happens. You say what?
I'd say that's absolutely ridiculous. The Republicans are in complete control of all the branches. They control the House, they control the Senate, they control the White House. They've already demonstrated that they can pass things when they choose to do so. If the government shuts down, it's completely 100% at their feet.
Wanted to ask you about, there certainly has been a lot of discussion about free speech, certainly after Charlie Kirk's assassination. And last week we saw this really play out with the FCC commissioner's comments involving Jimmy Kimmel, the ABC late night host who was temporarily suspended by ABC following comments from the FCC commissioner raising questions about stations, television stations' licenses. And so I just wanted to get your thoughts on that whole issue.
It is outrageous. I mean, it is a complete governmental overreach to weaponize the FCC and licensure against their stations for a host's comments like that. I mean, it is so out of the constitutional norms of free speech of this country. And I think what you saw is the public had a humongous backlash to that, and really responded and felt like this was authoritarianism at its worst. And this is not what this country is about. We have the freedom of speech. We have the freedom to express our political beliefs when they disagree with our leaders. That is a fundamental right of this country. And to be able to insinuate that the federal government is going to weaponize licensure for broadcasters based on the content and the exercise of free speech of a talk show host is the most blatant violation of First Amendment rights. And anyone who believes in the foundational constitutional principles of this country should be mortally offended by what happened, how the government abused and exercised and misused its power. And I was pleased to see that the American public, Republican and Democrat alike, spoke forcefully against that action.
And ABC did air the show once again.
Oh yeah, because they were absolutely wrong. And that was an example of the American public rising up and saying, "Oh no, this is not who we are. This is not the country we want to be. We are not in dictatorship China. We are not in North Korea. We are not in Russia, Putin's Russia. That is how they manipulate speech. That is how their governments control content for their people. That's not who we are in this country. We have free speech. That means everyone gets to speak, whether you agree with it or not. We have the right to do so. And the government cannot weaponize their power in order to abuse the rights of free speech in this country."
And, there is some conversation that I've been reading that some people are starting to say, should, the FCC really have any oversight of content, over broadcast anymore because they don't have that on cable. They don't have that on the internet per se. There's Section 230, but some are saying, is it time for the FCC to get out of that? And does Congress need to change the law? It's over 100 years old.
Well, I think so. I think to your point, we have all these different modes of communication now. Our technology has advanced, and the laws need to be able to keep up with the current flows of information and how content is delivered. What we want is laws that encourage truth, accuracy, factual basis of communications, not falsehoods, not wrongful manipulations of things. Like for example, I have a bill and that I filed to regulate the truth in AI and political advertising, that you can't use my image or my voice or yours or something else to falsely portray that we say something. We want accuracy. We want, when you see somebody speaking, you want it to be words that they actually said. But the government should not regulate what I say, or how I say it. But I do think we have a role as government to make sure that what is being portrayed is actually and truthfully delivered. So, it's going to be interesting. And I do agree that Congress should probably take a good look at the law and update it to the current norms.
And let me ask you, because there was an admission this week by Google that it was with the Biden administration censoring what some people said, some platforms, et cetera, based on what the government did not like being reported, whether it was criticism of then President Biden or discussions over COVID. What's your reaction to that? Is that right?
No, it's not right. They should, as I said, I think the only method, the only mechanism that should be regulated is we shouldn't allow people to intentionally, falsely manipulate the truth. But if people
How do
are
you do that, though?
well, you put in things in place that regulate libel, you regulate truthful advertising. I have an AI bill, for example, that prohibits the false manipulation of image and voice to create an event, to create the appearance that an event happened when it in fact did not. I mean, we definitely want truth out there. And I think with the development of technology and where it's progressing, sometimes it's hard to blur the lines. You can't even wholly scroll down Facebook these days, and without people going fake, this is false, this is manipulated, this isn't right, this isn't true, this is true. And we're heading down a very dangerous path of just blatant lies and falsehoods, and that cannot be allowed to stand. But when you're accurately reporting the truth, whether it's criticisms of President Biden or criticisms of, or your just belief structure, President Trump or whatever, you should have the right to do that, and the government should not censor that on either side.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you. You don't think the government needs to be doing that, regardless of a
Oh,
Democratic administration or Republican administration at all?
oh, that absolutely is not the role of government. We are not an authoritarian regime. We are not a dictatorship. We are a constitutional democracy. And that in the First Amendment, our founders put in there, the first one is to guarantee the right of freedom of speech. But there are limits. The Supreme Court has put limits on that right. You don't have the right to lie about people. There's certain things you don't have the right to do within your free speech. But as long as you're speaking about your opinions, your belief structures, and if you're going to report facts, they need to be truthful and accurate, then you have the right to do and say whatever you want.
And then I also wanted to ask you about, we've seen France and England, Canada, Australia, Spain, and other countries say that they are going to be recognizing a Palestinian state. Obviously, Israel disagrees with that. President Trump disagrees with that. Some Republicans. What do you say?
Well, I've long supported a two-state solution in the Middle East. I think that I totally believe the right of the Palestinian people to have self-determination and the right of the Israeli people to have their self-determination. So I support a two-state solution there. And I think every country has the right to make their own diplomatic decisions on how they interact with the Israeli government and the Palestinian Authority and the control there. And I'm hopeful that at some point we could reach peace in that region and we can get to a point where we actually truly have peace there for both the Israelis and the Palestinians in order to self-govern. And I think that's ultimately what we'd like to see.
And under the current situation, do you see that happening, given the fact that, there's still 48 hostages that have not been returned by Hamas, et cetera? So how soon do you think that can actually happen, and what do you think it'll take to get to that?
Well, I think you're right. In order to have peace, we have to release the hostages. It's outrageous. I can only imagine the pain that the families of those loved ones have by having their kids and their family, their brothers, their sons, in captivity this long, and they want them back. And at the same time, the Palestinian people, the Gaza, they're starving, they're suffering immensely, and that must end. And so, whatever the United States could do, unfortunately, I'm not in control of that. But Secretary Rubio and the President Trump is to leverage the United States in order to bring about peace. But I'm pleased to see that other countries in the world are stepping up in order to put influence there with Egypt and UAE and some of the other folks are trying to bring peace in that region. And it is my sincere hope that we can get there.
Democratic Congresswoman Julie Johnson of Farmers Branch, thank you again. We appreciate it.
As always, thank you, Jack.